Are you a wine connoisseur? Well, guess what? Neither am I. On this episode, though, we'll be talking about a wine from the north of Spain that has medium to full body, lots of jamminess, and it's easy on the wallet. We're going to be talking about that wine and so much more on this episode of The Average Wine Enthusiast. Hi there, everybody. My name is Mike LaPlante, and I'm the average wine enthusiast. One thing that really gets my goat is when folks introduce me or talk about me, and they call me a wine connoisseur. I don't honestly think they know what a connoisseur is. It's those folks who deal with nothing but the very best of whatever they're talking about, whether it's art or food or wine. I am certainly not a wine connoisseur. I can discern bad wine or meh wine from decent wine. That's where I'm at in my wine journey. Connoisseur, not so much. This week, I was inspired to talk about a very specific wine region, and that wine region is Rioja. I was inspired because a gentleman that I work with, he was pretty excited about visiting the Spain wine aisle at our local LCBO. And he thought that the wine that he was buying there was not bad wine, and he wasn't paying very much money for the wine. And that is true of Spain. You can find some pretty good buys in the Spain aisle for sure. But the same holds true for the French aisle as well, France, Chile, all these areas of the world produce inexpensive wines for sure, and that's where you got to be careful. How low do you go? If you're going too low, then you're going to find yourself drinking swill stuff that isn't very good at all. It doesn't pair with anything other than a bag of Cheetos. I tried to say some kind of snack food there, but I didn't want to degrade anybody. So, yes, you can get some decent wines in the Spain aisle. One of those wines that you can get is Rioja. What is Rioja? Rioja is a wine region in the north of Spain, which actually, in relative terms, is not very far from Bordeaux, which is in France. And obviously, everybody's heard of Bordeaux, world famous wine region. And the history of Rioja actually has something to do with its relationship, geographically that is, of Bordeaux. And the reason that is because in the late 1800s, after the phylloxera devastated the Bordeaux wine industry, a lot of those folks had no work. So they decided to travel south into Spain. And these vineyard workers, bodega workers, bodegas, by the way, is what the people in Spain call wineries. So these folks needed some place to work because there was no grapes being grown in France at the time. So, of course, with all these people moving down there, making lots of wine, they had to develop some kind of infrastructure which really helped develop the wine industry in the Rioja area. They had to build roads. They had to get plumbing in there. They also built a railroad, which back in those days, that was something that really solidified that area as a major commerce entity within the world. It's the thing that united the country that I live in, Canada. It was once the railroad was finished throughout the country, that's when Confederation happened. So the same holds true with the Rioja region. Everything was in place for them to make lots of wine. Was it good wine? No, because back in those days, wine, I know I've mentioned this in a previous show, wine wasn't thought of in terms of quality. Quality wine wasn't something that was pursued. It wasn't a thing. Maybe the smallest little niche of wine drinkers out there were interested in the best wine, royalty, and people like that. But for the most part, wine could be thought of as a commodity. Think of it in present day terms like milk. It's just something that we produce, or orange juice. It's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. It's one of those things that just it was there. So that's the conditions which Rioja made it start as a valid wine industry region. So we'll move ahead to the middle of the 1900s, maybe 1960 or so. That's when they realized, of course, Bordeaux had gotten its legs back, and people were starting to dig wine. So they realized there was more of a demand for wine. So they wanted to get more of their wine out of their wine region. So the focus then was in commercialization. How do we modernize our industry to compete on a world scale? So that was their focus then. It wasn't necessarily quality, it's how can we get more wine out of this area into the hands of people in the rest of the world. Not lofty goals at all. However, move ahead to present day, and that is the case now, which is the case in most major wine regions. New Zealand, Chile, Argentina. A lot of those places pump out lots of wine, but a good percentage of those wines are quality wines made by very knowledgeable winemakers. And trying to, of course, the higher the quality of wine you sell, the more you can charge for it. And it makes the industry healthy that way if you can pump more revenue into it. So that's the focus of Rioja now, is getting quality wines out of the area. So what is Rioja? The wine itself that comes out of there is called Rioja, and it is made primarily with Tempranillo grapes. Tempranillo grapes are very there's a lot of them grown. It might even be the grape that is grown the most in the world. I don't know what that stat is, but I know they grow them in Italy, another major wine region, wine area, and not so much in France, but in Spain as well. And so that's what they make Rioja with, is Tempranillo, and they blend it with Grenache, which in Spain they call it Granacha, I think. And there's another French, another grape that they blend with. Carignan, I think, is another grape that they blend with Tempranillo to make Rioja. There's probably other blending grapes as well, depending on the winemaker, what he wants to use or what's available to him or her. So that's what Rioja is made with. Now, recently, the folks who control such things in Rioja, because in Rioja, it's very similar to France, you can't say your wine is Rioja unless it's actually from Rioja. And on the back of every bottle, you'll see some kind of certificate of authenticity, as it were, and it's got a number stamped on there. And so the people who control that, the commissioners of wine in Spain, they have determined that they wanted to clarify their classifications of their wine, just like there's classifications in Côte d'Aron. You have the Côte d'Aron, the Village, and in Burgundy you have the different crus. So there's different hierarchies of wine, and of course the higher the hierarchy, the more you can charge for it usually. So in Rioja they decided to change it, which is a big thing. It's one of those things that's pretty much set in stone. So this is a time for them when, like I said, they're concentrating on quality and they want to make sure folks know what they're buying. So the first classification is the first classification is generic, actually. So these classifications deal mostly with the aging of the wine and how it is aged and how long. So the first one has no criteria for aging. It's just generic Rioja. The next up classification is Crianza. It has to be aged for a total of 2 years, and at least one of those years has to be in oak. The next up in the classifications is really where a lot of people think this is where Rioja starts, is the Reserva, and that's what I have here too. Riojas that are of the Reserva classification. No, those have to have a total aging of 3 years, of which one of those years has to be in oak. And the top end, as it were, of Rioja is the Grand Reserva. And that has to be aged for a total of 5 years, of which 2 of those years have to be aged in oak. So Rioja typically is a wine that does age very well. The Tempranillo grape is one of those grapes that can yield lots of body, and you can get those tannins happening, and that holds the wine together very nicely for a long period of time. And to prove the point, I have 2 Riojas here. This one here is a 2014. It's Campo Viejo, and I've had this many times. It's easy to find in the LCBO. This is the Reserva. I suspect that other classifications were in place earlier, because the classification below this Reserva back then was Tempranillo, is what it was called. So that was the base level, I believe. It would be the same as the Crianza. So the Reserva is still in place. And this is a 2014. Just bought it yesterday, and I want to say it was on sale at the LCBO for $15.45. Regularly $19, I think. So that's the Campo Viejo. Over here I have the Monticello, which is a 2012. So that's a 7-year-old wine that they're selling at the LCBO. It too was $15. Regular price, $15. And it's 7-year-old wine, and it's Rioja. It blows me away, but it's amazing that you can get this vintage of wine for that price. And it's available to you right now. You can go get this stuff. That's the nice thing about Rioja. They're pumping out lots of wine. I think Spain is the 3rd largest wine producer in the world. I would assume that either Italy or France is number 1. I would say Italy. That's my guess. So I thought we would taste these 2 Riojas, see if there's any difference, 2 years difference in vintage, and just to give you an idea what a Rioja actually tastes like. This was opened up actually yesterday. I was going to shoot a show last night, but life happened, and we decided that we were not going to be able to put a show in the can. So we took the wine out of the decanters, back in the bottle, and corked them back up. The wine should be fine. That was, maybe 12 hours ago all that went down. So what we have here is the Campo Viejo Rioja. It's a lot of J's that sound like H's. And what do we get in the nose? We get cherries. Bam! That smells like a cherry. Cherry bomb. A little bit of leather in there. Kind of smoky as well. It's yummy. Yummy on the nose. Let's give it a taste. More cherries. Some plum. Not crazily ripe plum, but there is a plum flavor in there. A little bit of vanilla and some kind of herb. I would say it was dill, if I had to say it was anything. It's a dillish greenness to it. And I think that's about it. So we have plums, cherries. Vanilla, a little bit of leather. Got some leather, and it ain't on the bus. It's right here in my glass. Okay, I wish I had something to rinse my palate with. I think I'll go get that right now. Okay, we're back, and we're going to try the Montecillo Rioja 2012. Montecillo is the name of the bodega. So there's one interesting fact about the Rioja. It's very much like Burgundy in so much that the Rioja region is made up of very small parcels of land. So some of these people who own 3 acres, they might work on it on the weekend. They might be bankers, auto workers, plumbers, but on the weekend they're farmers and they farm their land. A lot of those guys don't make the wine. They just sell their wine to a bodega who then goes ahead and makes the wine. A lot of these vineyards are also co-opted as well. So they all kind of get together and they determine a fair price that they should get for their grapes as well before they sell it to the bodegas. I think that's a great setup that they have as far as that goes. So the pressure to make big conglomerates of beverage companies that's going on in many other parts of the world is kind of suppressed. And I think that is going to help with the diversification of the wine that's coming out of Rioja. And it also will help with developing a better wine industry that will be more appreciated by wine lovers out there. So Montecello 2012, 7-year-old wine I'm drinking right here. $15. Crazy. Oh, that smells nice too. That's also cherry. Also smoky. Very smooth. The tannins are far more apparent, which is amazing in this than in the Campo Viejo. That was far smoother, which makes you think that it's pretty much peaked in terms of its ability to age anymore and not lose something. It may have already lost something in the 5 years it's been around. I say that these types of wines, Rioja in particular, they are good to age from anywhere between 5 to 7 years. I think that's the peak for a lot of the wine that is sold today, as far as red wines go anyway. I think the Riojas, though, they are so jammy, and a lot of them are, tannins are nice and firm, and I think these can easily go 10 years. Obviously, these people are selling their Rioja, and it's a 2012, and some people are going to grab this and stick it in their cellar for a year or two. So then there you go, you got 9-year-old bottle of wine, or even 10 years old if you want to keep it for 3 years. And I think it would be just fine. The alcohol usually in a Rioja is 13.5 to 15. That's what the average alcohol by volume is in Rioja wine. So if you like full-bodied wine, Rioja is definitely the way to go. But this here is, the tannins, like I said, are right up there. So it gives it a complexity that this one may be lacking. So yeah, cherries, vanilla, another hint of leather as well. So very similar flavor profiles. However, this one, it seems a little more complex, that each individual flavor is just boosted up a little bit and mingles very well because of the tannins that you can find in it. So I guess that's going to do it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you go out and get yourself a bottle of Rioja, a very inexpensive, reasonably priced bottle of wine. If you're into medium to full-bodied wines, and like I said, cherry profile, plums, vanilla, those are the trademarks of a lot of wines out of Bordeaux, and even California wines as well. Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots. This is right up. It's the same type of flavor profile as those wines. So I hope you go out and get yourself some Rioja. I will also want to mention, if you like the show, please tell a friend. If you know someone else who digs wine and they want to learn a thing or two about wines, and they may do well by picking up some knowledge before they go to the liquor store, turn them on to the show. I'd really appreciate it. If you have any comments of your own, please leave them down below. And also, I'd like to thank the Big Organ Trio for letting me use their music at the beginning and end of the show. I guess that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Mike LaPlante, and I'm the Average Wine Enthusiast.